What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for Sports. So, this is another video request that I have gotten, and that is that someone asked me if I could see like a comparison or similarities between Larry Holmes, I guess, in the field of boxing, his status and how he was perceived and appreciated, and Moses Malone. And I mean, there's definitely some similarities. Neither one of them were known for their personalities. They were not the most verbose or articulate. You know what I'm saying? And they were unfairly compared to other stars as far as their personalities and marketability. Of course, Larry Holmes immediately followed Muhammad Ali, which was unfair. Moses Malone, I think, was compared probably immediately to a guy like Kareem, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, those guys. And for as far as his peers are concerned, his immediate peers other than Kareem, guys like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Julius Erving, they were much more gregarious, marketable, and Moses wasn't as appreciated. But as far as performance is concerned, Larry Holmes is probably, when you really look at it, his reign, probably a top 5 all-time heavyweight. Some will even have him higher than that. To me, Moses is a top 5 all-time center. Well, he's definitely in that conversation, top 5, top 6. 3-time league MVP. Statistically, the greatest offensive rebounder the game has ever seen. Larry Holmes had the greatest jab, pound for pound, most people has ever seen. Larry Holmes won the first 48 fights of his career. The 49th fight was a very controversial decision against him. The 50th fight, also against Michael Spinks. Most people feel like Holmes won that fight, but they gave it to Spinks again. Some people think he got screwed because they didn't want him to match Rocky Marciano, who was revered in boxing at that time. Moses Malone, as great as he was for his prime, for much of his prime, he did not have a great team around him. The only time he had a great team around him in his prime was pretty much the end of his prime, when he was with the Sixers. Another thing you can compare both of them with is that they both had very long careers. Larry Holmes started boxing professionally when he was the early 70s, and he fought all the way, I think, to like 2001, 2002, when he was in his 50s. Moses Malone was a star in Petersburg, Virginia, in high school. That'd be back in the early 70s, maybe late 60s, early 70s. He played for the ABA. Then he starred in the NBA for many, many years and played all the way to 1995. So there's some similarities, a lot of similarities in their careers. Larry Holmes was known for more of his skill set, not for brute strength, power. He was, for many people, they saw a Muhammad Ali clone, even though he had a better jab. You could argue he was technically a better boxer than Muhammad Ali. Not as great an athlete, because Ali could get away with certain things because of his unparalleled athleticism. But from a boxing standpoint, he was actually, you could argue, an improvement over Muhammad Ali. Moses was not known necessarily for his skill set, though that was an underrated aspect of his game. He was known more for his tenacity and physicality, especially when he was younger. From the mid-70s all the way to about 84, 85. He outworked everybody, out-hustled. He was a workhorse, and he wore a lot of his opponents down a stretch of games. And that's a key difference. But there's some similarities, definitely. And they both weren't exactly GQ when it came to their appearance either, you know. But both are highly respected, underappreciated. So I could definitely see this comparison. Yeah, I could definitely see it. Just trying to think of some other things to say before I end this. You could also argue that both had dominating performances against aging stars that many people held against them, especially when it came to Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes dominated Muhammad Ali in an October 1980 fight to the point where many Ali fans to this day hate Larry Holmes for that. Larry Holmes has said that he's had fans come up to him in tears telling them they hated him for what he did to Ali. Or you didn't have to beat Ali up like that. You know, a lot of fans that watched that fight, Ali fans, they had an emotional attachment to Ali more than just boxing. You know what I mean? So to see their hero get beat up like that after he had performed so many comebacks and miracles, it really fucked with a lot of people's heads. Larry Holmes cried after that. Matter of fact, of course, if you watched the fight, Larry Holmes was begging the ref to stop the fight. Now, Kareem wasn't washed, but in an 83 series, Kareem was not the same player that he had been a few years before. And Moses Malone just completely dominated Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in that 83 finals. I mean, completely dominated him. I remember the rebounding was 73-30 in favor of Moses Malone. I mean, he just completely dominated and blew him away in that series. But anyway, those are some of the comparisons. I think like I said, I think this is a pretty apt comparison between the two. I can see similarities. But tell me what you guys think.